I had one teacher, for instance, that would always say when I would, like, let's say, misbehave or I would be not following the instructions, she would say, Weyni, be quiet, we are not in the African jungle.
Wait, what?
Things like that, yes. I think what was even worse about that was that the classmates were laughing and started making monkey noise. First, I must say, I never had Kenya on my radar.
Yeah.
I even had, I'm gonna be very honest with you, I didn't even have positive images of Kenya in my mind, because during my time in Ethiopia, I one time did a trip to Mombasa over Christmas. I went to Malindi and I experienced also kind of racism there, that we were served last. There were so many Italians, and every time I order one drink, the waiter wanted to have me pay the bill, you know, after every drink.
So you don't run away?
So I don't run away. I felt like I was really treated differently.
But you are being treated by another black person.
Yes. People say it's the past, right? But colonization is not the past, it's the present. If we see, for instance, statues of colonizers that are still being glorified on the African continent, that is an idea, a story that is being put in a positive sense and that is being perpetrated in the present, because it's here, it's here with us. As long as the narratives, right, that surround these people still exist, colonization is not the past.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of LNN. My name is Lynn Ngugi, and as always we get to meet for another beautiful conversation where we get to do the three things we are doing this season. We are learning and relearning, and I love that our guest today has gone through the journey of coming back to the motherland, and she's such an amazing person to have a conversation with. And I asked her, what would you want to achieve with today's conversation? And she said, Lynn, I would want to contribute to changing the mindset and also, you know, just contributing to the mind shift of Africans, so that we can be able to realize how beautiful a continent we have. In an age where so many people are being sold the American or Europe dream, she's coming back home, and she will be sharing her experience, the challenges, and why this journey has been so important to her. I'm about to let her introduce herself, but before I do that, please allow me to welcome all our new subscribers on the platform. I see you guys, and it warms my heart every time I come here and we have new members on this platform. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I hope you can be able to be impacted by our conversations and also our amazing team that gets to put this work together. We really do appreciate you. And now, of course, I know you tuned in to learn and relearn. So without further ado, please allow me to let our guest introduce herself so that we can be able to kickstart our conversation today. Hi.
Hello,
How
Lynn.
are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I know I said it, but you look so beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Asante.
Karibu sana. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm excited. I feel blessed to be your guest. Thanks for having me. I see the work that you're doing is so inspiring and so important at this time. And so, yeah, I'm just grateful to be part of this, of your work, of your project as well.
And I'm so happy even for accepting our invitation to come on today's show. I have said, when I sit with incredible guests like you, it just makes us all realize that when we lose our fear, people lose the power they think they have on us. Yes. But I know we're about to get into a very beautiful show. But before that, for the people who are maybe seeing you for the very first time, could you introduce yourself and tell them what you do?
Okay. My name is Weyni Tesfai. I am a content creator, and I have my channel on Instagram and YouTube, which goes by the name Plan Back to Africa, where I share my journey of leaving behind Germany, the country where I was born and raised, and then my journey back to the African continent that started with a full-time journey that took almost a year, through 8 countries together with my 2 children. And I just share my knowledge and my experience also from the point of view of a cultural anthropologist and historian in African studies. That's what I studied in Germany, but also show ways to create financial independence and freedom, which I achieved through my Airbnb business and my journey of building multiple home bases on the African continent that allowed me this lifestyle. And so my goal is to inspire the diaspora to think outside of the box, to break free from the systems that keep us stuck, that tell us that we cannot achieve what we want to achieve, what we dream. And that is my journey and my mission. And I just feel honored and proud to be able to do that. Yes.
I love that. You're doing quite a lot, which has a very positive impact in our society. But I love that you've said you were born and raised up in Germany. You know, there's this thing I see on social media. This is this kind of Africa, or the side of Africa they never tell you about. When you're growing up in Germany and being raised there, what was your perception of Africa? Tell us the truth. What was your perception of Africa?
Okay, so the first thing I have to say is the environment where I grew up was not really diverse. We had maybe 1 or 2 Italian, 2 Turkish, and I was basically the only black girl in my class during primary school. And so I would say I had a positive influence when it comes to Africa because of the way that I was raised. My mother is a very proud African, and it was always very important for her to bring us to the motherland, which was Eritrea and Ethiopia. Is still.
Yes.
So we traveled frequently, I would say every second year. She worked so hard to be able to provide this experience to us so that we are rooted. And so from my household, I would say I had a positive image of Africa. I mean, Africa is big. My world back then was Eritrea and Ethiopia. And she always taught us that you might be born and raised in Germany, but you will always be African. You will always be Habesha, Ethiopian, Eritrean. So whatever you build here can be taken away from you. So she always programmed and raised us in a way that we see a future in Africa when it comes to language. So until I entered kindergarten, I didn't even know how to speak German. And so I learned German when I was in kindergarten. And that gave me connection and the ability that I can go back to my home country and not just connect with the people, but even build there. I think, yeah, that was my first knowledge of Ethiopia. However, that all shifted later in secondary school when I experienced racism, not just from classmates, but also from teachers who would perpetuate negative stereotypes about the African continent. I had one teacher, for instance, that would always say when I would, like, let's say, misbehave or I would be not following the instructions, she would say, Weyni, be quiet, we are not in the African jungle.
Wait, what?
Things like that, yes. And I think what was even worse about that was that the classmates were laughing and started making monkey noises. Yeah, things like this, you know. I can laugh about it now.
Now we can.
Yeah, now I can laugh about it, but I started, it had a negative impact, I would say, on my confidence, on my self-perception. And then with the media that was portraying whiteness as the norm, as the beauty standards, I started in my early teenage years neglecting my God-given gifts, like my curls. I would straighten my hair. I would try to fit into the norm. Yeah, I didn't have a good image of Ethiopia also at that time because of the pictures of starving people that would dominate the images in the Western media, the jokes that were made in the school and about starving Ethiopian children. Can you imagine the evilness making jokes and fun about starving people? Yeah, but that was something that I was really struggling with until I would say I was 16, 17. And that's when my view shifted on Africa.
That must have been so hard to experience. Like, I can't imagine being in a room where people are saying this is not an African jungle,
Mm-hmm.
and people are laughing and making all weird kind of noises. Mentally, did that affect you? And how did you deal with that?
Yes, it affected me in a negative way, that I felt less worthy, I would say, because Africa was seen as something primitive, backward, dirty, constantly at war. You know, there were no positive images about Africa, whether in the media, whether in the school, and then when it comes to the school curriculum, right? We would talk about the enslavement of Africans, the colonization of Africans. But mind you, in a German school, in a country that itself has a colonial history, but we never spoke about Germany's involvement in colonialism and slavery, but always pointing finger on the British and the French. And imagine, up to my, I would say, end of secondary years, I thought slavery existed only in the US. So because we were talking about topics like the civil rights movement, right? And I started asking myself, how come Africans never resisted? Because we were never taught about that. You know, it seemed like the history of Africa, as it was taught in the school curriculum in Germany, started with the arrival of the Europeans and the domination of Europe over Africa. And of course, automatically, in a school system that also only teaches you how to memorize things and how to remember things and not how to reflect critically and to ask questions, you take it as it is. And so, yeah, I felt like something's wrong with Africa. And Europe is the blueprint, the future. Africa is in the past, still stuck in the past. And that all changed when I visited Ethiopia and learned about the Battle of Adwa, which by accident, also by coincidence, happened in my hometown in Adwa in northern Ethiopia. I was never aware that Italians got defeated in Ethiopia. And that was like, wow, why is nobody talking about that?
How was it like for you to experience that side of Africans and realize we fought back, we resisted, we are a movement, that's what we've always been? How was that like for you, that experience, understanding that your ancestors, they put up a war and they defeated the Italians?
I must say it changed everything. It changed everything. Also, the course of the things that I was interested in, I became really like obsessed with learning more. What else happened? Where else did people resisted? And it also sparked my curiosity in, finding ways to also beyond the school to learn more about that. So, and my journey took an interesting turn because instead of like first researching deeply in Ethiopia, my birth country itself, because when I spoke about these things with my relatives, their knowledge was more about the war strategies. Like my uncles, I come from a family of fighters. Of course, we had so many wars in Ethiopia, and almost every Ethiopian has somebody in his family that fought. I mean, it was not a long time ago, 41, I think, when the second Italo-Ethiopian war ended. That is maybe 70 years ago, and the patriots, they're still alive. Yeah. And what they passed down mostly is the war tactics and strategies, how they defeated the Italians. Yes. But I was interested in what happened beyond the military strategy and the excellence of the Ethiopian army. What impact had it have this victory globally, right? Which shifts did it create? Yes. Which alliances happened? And how did that victory impacted maybe other movements? And so that was when I made the decision. I don't care about what brings me money later on. When I was done with my A-level, I first took a break of for a year. And that was when already the first criticism started. How can you not go to university? You have to do something with your life, especially from my household, my family, my mother. I want you to go to university. I want you to become a doctor, you know?
Hallelujah.
You know, and when they think about doctor, they think about medical doctor.
Yes.
They don't even know that you can be a doctor in physics. In history, you know. And so,
my people.
Yes, I love them.
Yeah, we do.
And so I said, what I need now is I need knowledge. I was craving knowledge. I was getting obsessed with learning more, and that's when I decided I want to study African history and cultural anthropology. And people were telling me, you will end up poor. What are you going to do with that? You know, you cannot make money with that. I have a friend who did that. He's working now as a social worker. I said, I don't care about the money. I want to know who we are, what happened. And that's when I started learning more, especially outside of also the university curriculum. There were extracurricular activities to South America and to the Caribbean with a focus on resistance movements of enslaved Africans against the colonizers. And then I worked so hard because I didn't have much money. I worked 2 jobs to save for this trip. And that was the first time that I visited South America. I went to Colombia and visited, there is a place, it's called San Basilio de Palenque, which is the first free Black community in the Western Hemisphere. They freed themselves from slavery already in the 17th century. And I remember when I went there, I was surprised to see people Black like me. And they were telling me, and I was also, and there was like this excursion group, and I was also the only Black girl. The rest was German, Austrian. And there was one situation I never forget, which showed me how we connected we are. We were on a fort, visiting a Spanish fort, and there were a group of youth sitting there. And they called me, they said, Hermana, which means, I think it means sister or cousin. And I looked to them and they said, oh. And I cried. I was like, wow, this is so powerful. I come from far away, but they see that I have more in common with them than with the privileged group that I'm traveling with. And that had really like a positive impact in developing the sense of unity, Pan-Africanism. And yeah, I would meet so many amazing people. And it was interesting because when I told them that I'm from Ethiopia, they would tell me, your people inspired us, what you have achieved, you know? And and then they shared different perspectives, what I was talking about. I only had the knowledge about the military strategy, but they showed me this sense of this identity, how their identity got stronger, more positive, and through through saying no, we will not accept being slaves. We will fight back. Our brothers have done it in Ethiopia and on the continent. They have done it in Haiti. We will do it here too. And they told me, you have to learn more about your country. You have to go to Ethiopia and study more. And so my journey actually started in South America, the Caribbean. And then I went to Ethiopia with those questions and those insights that I had there. And that's when I first learned that what I learned during my travels from people on the ground who have never been to university, who have just had basic educations, taught me much, much more than what a lecturer at the university taught me. That's when I understood the power of traveling, connecting to the people and learning, that this is actually the most powerful education you can get.
I love that. I can only imagine, you know, you looking at them and then realizing you are the gem in that whole crowd.
Yes.
They saw you.
Yes.
They felt you and they connected with you. And I kind of feel like that's what brings us Africans together. I can see you, I can feel you, and I can connect with you. And that's priceless.
Do you know what even happened one time? That was in a village in Suriname, which was a Dutch colony. Because there was a whole tour, and then we went into this village, And these were also one of the first free blacks there. They were still having elements of their language from Africa. I think it was Akan from Ghana. They were very isolated for hundreds of years. And I would say they're even more pure African than the people in Ghana themselves, who have already experienced colonization and Christianity, Islam. So they were still, because from the very beginning of their arrival, they fled into the Amazon jungle. And we were there with the group, and it seems like the rest of the group, they didn't have the connection that I had. And they were like, after 4 hours, we've seen enough. Let's go and eat. I said, what? We came all this way and you want to, how can you think about food now? Do you know where we are right now? Let's talk about what happened. Let's get to know the people and share also our stories. And you know what? They were like, making me look like somebody who thinks that I am better than them.
Yes.
Like this gaslighting. Who do you think you are? Leave these people alone. Okay, we drove to the, because we rented one bus, we drove to the restaurant, and I said, I cannot eat. And there was this driver who was like a mixed Indian, you know, they have all these mixes also, Indian with British and whatever. And I told him, listen, I don't want to eat. I want to go back. I pay you. He said, okay. Told my prof, call me when you're done. I went back with him. The chief of that village, he came to me and he said, I knew you're going to come back. Let me come and let me take you and show you my shrine. And he showed me like the things that not many people get to see, you know. And even my driver, he was so thankful, because they also have the stereotypes in the metropole, in the cities, about these, they call them runaway slaves, right? They also have their prejudices that these people are backward, they live in the jungle. And so he said, I learned so much today with these people, thanks to you. And also me, I learned so much that the connection was there. And this chief, he knew that I was going to come back.
Yeah.
And yeah, they was amazing, you know.
Did you ever go back?
To that place?
Yeah.
No, but I want to.
You want to go back?
It's one of the most beautiful places and most underrated ones also.
Yeah. And you know, you've said something important. I remember in our conversation with Mordecai and Barria, the authors of the big conservation lie, and we were talking about the game parks, the tourist destinations. And I think we talked about, I think, the Masai Maras and all these places. And the tourists, when they come, they are not interested with the people. They are interested with the parks and the animals around, and they don't want to see the people, because the people are a distraction to what they came to witness. And as you are talking about this group that you're with, I can't help but think the same.
Yes.
This is a place rich of history. This is a place that belongs to these people. Why don't you want to see the people?
Yeah, it's some people, they're just trying to tick off places on their bucket list, right? It's just to flex, I would say. Some people are just interested in the nature, right? That's also whenever I hear conservation of the nature, right? Which role do Africans play? And how did colonialism maybe affected the conservation in the first place? Because the people have been taking care of this place for thousands of years.
Yeah, we've coexisted with these animals for thousands of years.
And instead of trying to learn about traditional conservation practices and the knowledge that the people have, right? They try to, like they are viewed as an obstacle to conservation. You know, they're seen as a threat to wildlife, to nature. Don't cut the trees, save the Amazon forest. You know, this sense of entitlement after they have destroyed the entire nature in Europe already, you know. If you go to Germany, it's crazy when you see the big craters and massive forests that were destroyed to extract coal, you know. And but they always try to bring their concepts of conservation to these places where people have been
conserving
for thousands of years. But this is the big problem that I see, where indigenous knowledge is never valued, you know, from a Western lens. It's always the Western experts that know how things have to be done. That's a big problem that you see in the entire tourism industry.
Mm-hmm. How has your view changed now? How do you view tourism now?
Yeah, I think tourism has its good sides,
yeah.
Right? It can help, especially small businesses, grow. But I think there must be more measures to control them, because things can get out of hand real quick. I've witnessed this in Zanzibar, you know. There was this festival in 2021 that was shifted from Europe to Zanzibar due to COVID. And I was there at the time. And in the first day of the festival, 3 people got killed. A man with his son, Zanzibari, and another one because the driver was on drugs. It was this techno festival where everyone was on drugs. And you would see there was a bad energy, you know. People were consuming all kinds of things, and Zanzibar is a very conservative place. And I've also seen some people that I used to know that used to work in hotels, how they started doing these things, and then a year later when I visited again, they were totally messed up. So I think the governments have to be more stricter, and it's not always about money. You know, you have to put the people first. Yeah, and but I think tourism is a privilege also, and can be very powerful from the traveler's perspective. If you go with an open heart, go to learn, which is not always easy, but that's the whole point, I think.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, to travel to
learn.
To learn.
Not to take.
Exactly.
I love that. Let's go back to your journey. You've gone to these places and now you're starting to get this feel. I think I'm a different person. I think what has been taught to me might not be the pure truth. There are versions of me you wished someone would have told you back then. How did your journey progress? And at what point do we get to you saying, I don't want to live in Europe anymore. I want to go home. I want to go back to the motherland.
I think somehow deep down I always knew that Europe is not my place. I think even from early childhood, I knew I don't want to live a life where I'm stuck in a 9-to-5 job, where I'm struggling, because I was seeing it with people around me. They were constantly tired, exhausted, and especially one thing that really disturbed me was to see how my mother, who's the only one in her family that lives abroad, which comes with huge responsibilities, because she doesn't only have to take care of her mother, but of her brother, her sister, and their children, right? And so it was always working, doing nothing for yourself, never enjoying life, and the little money you made to send it back home. I think that's the reality of so many of the African diaspora who live abroad. And I said, no, because of the connection that she created for me, for us, with our siblings there, I felt I have to give back. I never chose this life, right? I don't owe anyone anything. That's also something that I understood very early, because I don't like to be pressured. I didn't choose this life, but I am grateful for being born here. I could have also been my cousin who's carrying
the water
to the mountains. I've seen this since I was a child, you know, but I knew there must be another way to uplift them rather than living from paycheck to paycheck and sending it back home. So I had this vision very early on. Why not go there with the resources you have, with the knowledge you have, and build something there on the ground that can help them help themselves, right? And so by then already, I knew I'm out. After I finished my studies, I knew I have to find a way. That's when I started looking for ways, because people always ask me, how did you manage to go back to Africa? I think the first step that I had to take was finding out ways on how to make money remotely without being dependent on a location, which is what I did. And then I, on top of that, got the job in Ethiopia and then started a business there that can help my family as well, you know. Yeah.
How was it being back in Ethiopia?
It was beautiful, to be honest, the first 2 years. And it was also risky. Many people told me don't go, because I went to in 2019 when there was this big shift and many people had hopes, you know. We have the first female president in the history of Ethiopia. For the first time, we have a prime minister who's coming from a historically marginalized group, you know. And I felt an energy that reminds me on the energy that we have now with Ibrahim Traoré, like a new beginning. And I knew I wanted to be part of that rise. And so I knew, despite everyone warning me and telling me, be careful, it's not stable, it's going to get down, there is a war coming up. But I was very naive, I would say. However, I'm still grateful for ignoring all the negative comments, because I was following my heart. I wanted my children to experience our culture, learn our language. I made the move. I had the best time of my life. I learned the importance of family again, because, you know, in Africa, families, they spend time together. In Europe, I would see my brothers sometimes only on Christmas. Everybody's busy with his own life somehow. We are distracted. We are chasing after the wrong things. And when I was in Ethiopia, I was still in this Western mindset, but my brothers who are in Ethiopia, they put me back. Said, come get up, we're going to church now. We have to pray. Started going to church again regularly. And it was really like, I felt so connected. Every time I entered a church, I started crying. I cannot explain why, but it felt like something is like
shedding off.
Yes, and it was a process of healing. But then unfortunately, the genocidal war broke out in 2020, which was targeting my ethnic group. And I think that was the most difficult time in my life, because you leave Europe thinking Africa is your liberation, and then you wake up to the reality on the ground, the tribalism that exists there, the forms of discrimination, and you see what is happening there, and even being endorsed by churches, you know, the violence, the whole things then you question everything, you know, everything, and you lose yourself again. It takes time to find yourself again. And then I had to move back to Germany because of the war, because it was not safe anymore. And that was also a worst time, even during COVID. You come from Ethiopia, let's put away the war for now, because during war, every nation shows its most ugliest face, you know. But in essence, our people are welcoming, hospitable, they love to share. And then I come to Germany and I see during COVID how people are fighting in the supermarket over toilet paper. I was thinking, I'm in the wrong movie, what's going on here? I have to get out of here, you know? And that's when I said, okay, it didn't work out the first time, but I did it once and I can do it again. And then I spent 2 years in Germany, 2.5 years, to work on a new plan, a new strategy. And I was with, you know, I got so many opportunities in Germany. People offered me jobs, well-paid jobs, come work for us. I said, no, I don't know what I'm going to do in Africa, but I have to leave again. I have to find my way. And that's how I learned about Kenya, through friends of mine who live here. And many friends of mine who left Europe to move to Ethiopia at that time when there was this big rising, and who also left Ethiopia due to the war, are also now in Nairobi. So I feel like I still have my family and my circle here.
What did they tell you about Kenya that convinced you this is one of another African countries that I can start my life again in? What was it about Kenya?
first I must say I never had Kenya on my radar.
Yeah.
Okay, and I even had, I'm going to be very honest with you, I didn't even have positive images of Kenya in my mind, because during my time in Ethiopia, I one time did a trip to Mombasa over Christmas. I went to Malindi, and I experienced also kind of racism there, that we were served last. There were so many Italians, and every time I order one drink, the waiter wanted to have me pay the bill, you know, after every drink.
So you don't run away.
So I don't run away. I felt like I was really treated differently.
But you are being treated by another black person.
Yes, yes. And I was like, what's going on here? Why they're like that, you know? And of course, it's my experience in Malindi cannot speak for Nairobi, Kenya in its entirety. But that was my first impression that I had from Kenya. And then my friends told me, look, come to Kenya, visit it one time and see for yourself. And then you can decide. I said, okay. I booked a ticket. I came for 2 weeks. The moment I stepped out of the plane in Nairobi and driving to my Airbnb in Kileleshwa, I felt home. I said, this is it. I knew it in the first 30 minutes. I don't know what it was, the air. It reminded me on the air when I stepped out of the airport in Addis, the temperature, the people, you know, everyone was, you know, this beautiful energy, this welcoming energy. The driver that I spoke to, with for the 30 minutes, I just knew Nairobi is special. And that's when
you decided.
Yes, and then I met my friends. I saw what they are doing. They're all doing amazing things. A good friend of mine, also Ethiopian, who I met in Ethiopia, and who also had his plans initially to start something in Ethiopia. He came to Kenya then and started Tech Safari. I don't know if you heard of Tech Safari. He's the founder of Tech Safari. And I saw all these stories, you know, of people who are doing big things here. And I said, wow, you know, I already have a community here. And the people are nice, and infrastructure is there.
Beautiful. Hi, Kenyans. Yeah, we are good people.
Yeah,
we are amazing people.
Yes.
One term, yeah.
Absolutely.
One term.
One term?
One term.
What is one term?
Don't worry, Weyni, one term.
No.
One term. But are you coming with your children? At what point do you now decide, after you've made this conscious decision that I'm going to settle in this beautiful African country, Kenya? At what point do you also say, I need to walk this journey with my children? And also considering your mother, as you said, played a very intentional role in making sure that you don't forget your roots. Did you get to do the same with your children?
Yes, absolutely. I'm traveling with my children. The first trip my daughter had was when she was 8 months.
Yeah.
And so I made this initial trip to Kenya on my own to see for myself, to have clarity. Because if you come with children, at that time they were 6 and 4. If you come with children, you cannot focus, right? So I came, I immediately made up my mind, found a lawyer, started a company, registered a company, took care of the process to get the residency. And then I went back to Germany, and then it was the preparation process. I was getting more information about the school, healthcare, all these things. I was saving money, and then, but I wasn't ready, you know? I wasn't ready somehow. And you always wait for the perfect time, right? And at that time, they were at school. They were enrolled at school, and I didn't want to take them out in the middle of the term. Yeah. So I waited for the term to end, and then I said, okay, now is the time. I don't want to wait another 6 months. And I knew that was the first thing that we have to do also for my children, also to heal from the pain of the war that we experienced and losing so many family members and friends, and witnessing the war from the comforts of your home. I was like really haunted by diaspora guilt, you know, because I left all my people, my brother, my friends back, and I felt like a failure. I felt like I'm leaving them behind, you know. But they themselves said, what are you waiting for? If we had the passport, we would have left long time ago. So I knew the first thing that I have to do before going to Kenya is I need to go to Ethiopia to see my family. I need to mourn. I need to, you know, express my condolences to the families. I need to visit my country. And I must say, I was also very bitter in my heart, you know, this bitterness, this anger that you have. And so I looked for flights. I was initially looking for a flight from Germany to Ethiopia, then from Ethiopia to Kenya, one-way trip. And it turns out I found this amazingly cheap flight, which had a different route with Egypt. So I said to myself, why not include Egypt, make it a longer stopover? And then I had another possibility. Don't ask me, Lynn. Sometimes I'm crazy. I'm just on the laptop and I'm, you know, going crazy, adding trips. You know, the multi-city flight. Okay, let me add Johannesburg. Yeah. Johannesburg is a nice place. I heard. I added Johannesburg. The price didn't change.
Hey.
Yeah, $499 from Germany to Ethiopia, from Ethiopia to Egypt, from Egypt to Johannesburg.
Whoa.
$490. And I was like, if that's a deal, if I don't take it, I'm done losing my mind. But Weyni, what are you doing in Johannesburg? What about going? Kenya?
Yeah.
How do you get to Kenya? You don't know anyone there. Let me sleep one night over it. If the flight is still the same price, there's the sign. Yes. You know, I just told myself. Next day, the flight was still there. I didn't even think twice. I booked that flight and I visited Ethiopia, which was so important for me to heal. Everything else would have not ended that way, because there is something about our people on the African continent. There's something that always impressed me, is how forgiving we are. And I think that's also because of the strong faith that we have. I came to Ethiopia, I visited to my region in northern Ethiopia, the Tigray region, and spoke to people who have witnessed atrocities. And I was having so much anger against the enemies, you know, from the other sides. And then I talked to my friend and he tells me how they were digging out the corpses of the enemies and buried them in the church. I said, you did what? You did this for your enemy? And he said, this is our faith. This is our belief. We are Christians. Every Christian, it doesn't matter what this person has done in their life, deserves to be buried in church. And so this forgivingness they had, it was, yeah, it helped me also to forgive and heal, you know? What excuse do I have to not forgive if I wasn't even directly affected by the war? When I see people who have been directly affected, they are able to forgive. And that really helped me to heal and then to move forward, to leave the past behind. We don't forget but we forgive, you know? And then I did this trip with my children. Sometimes I was scared, to be honest. I was like, oh my God, Johannesburg is no joke. You are here alone. People were telling me I'm crazy. But when I look back now at the pictures, the places that we traveled, right? I cry. I cannot believe that I was really there. And my children, they have so many beautiful memories and such a powerful impact, right? Because I always, when we went to places, I make sure they see it from an African perspective. Like, for instance, when we went to Zimbabwe, I said, forget this name that's standing there. This is not Victoria Falls. This is nonsense. This is Mosi Oatunya Falls. Today, they also, when they speak about the falls, automatically they say Mosi Oatunya Falls. So this journey was also a beginning to decolonize the language of the children. It starts with language, because what we speak it into existence, right? It shapes our mind, the way we think, you know? And so, yeah, that had a very powerful impact, because now of course, they're in the Cambridge curriculum. They're learning positive things about Queen Victoria, but they know also the other side, you know? So I would say I'm doing my best to step into the shoes of my mom, but I'm trying to add things that my mom couldn't. And yeah, of course, I don't have the strengths that my mom had. Our parents, they were built differently, right? But I'm trying my best really to decolonize their minds, you know, to show them that being Black is beautiful. I have a daughter, especially for my daughter, you know, and it's so important to empower them. She's here in Kenya. The first thing she wanted to have sister locks, you know, the dreadlocks, for a long time, which would have been impossible in Europe, because you are being put in a box, you're looked down upon, you're seen as filthy, you know. But here you see, that was one thing that I also loved about Kenya, I must say, from my perception of traveling many African countries. Women tend to embrace their natural hair much, much more here than in other African countries.
Yeah, it's been a journey though. It's been a journey.
I heard that also.
It's been a journey. I was actually thinking about it. I was even going to make a short video about it. We were just discussing it, I think, yesterday with my team. Why did they make us straighten our hair, perm our hair, add chemicals to our hair, shave our hair in school? Man, I remember us even doing it with iron boxes because we thought that's the only way we will look beautiful. I remember having to put chemical on my hair so many times so that the moment I would sense some hardness on my hair, it doesn't matter whether I put this chemical a month ago, I'll go and just take it, and just because my hair was never supposed to be rough. So it's been a journey, but we are glad we are here. We are so glad that we are here, but it's been a journey because schools still do that right now. There are schools where if you show up with this hair, shave that hair, but later on you look back and you are like, this was so beautiful. They should have, if they let me with my hair would be all the way here. I don't know, I would be sweeping the floor with my natural hair, but it's been a journey. But I'm glad we are making great steps towards the right direction. Yeah.
And it has a positive impact on the young. My daughter, she sees girls look like her. She said, Mommy, I want to have the sister locks. So I said, you can get them. And she loves it, you know. It's beautiful to be surrounded. When I look at the way I grew up, right? I think I made the right decision, because when she draws, when she paints the girls, the people, in the color of her skin. The women look like her mom. The men on her picture look like her father. I was painting white, you know, dolls. Even, you know, in German, the crayons, you have this nude, right? Nude color. Literally translated in German, that crayon color is called skin color. You know? So that means this is not skin color. White is skin color.
That's skin color.
That's skin color. Like literally, if you translate it, Hautfarbe, Haut means skin, Farbe means color. That was the color, the name of that color, like black, orange, then you had skin color. And that's how we would draw our paintings, you know, because we're supposed to use skin color. That's skin, this is not skin. So I see this shift already in my children. They're embracing their heritage, the way they look, you know. I see pride in themselves, and that is also mainly a result of the journey that I took, where people were telling me, you're crazy to do that. I would never dare, you know.
Great job, Weyni.
Thank you.
Are you homeschooling them, and what's your relationship now, matters education, when it comes to your children?
So on the journey, it took us 9 months after traveling these countries. During that journey, I was homeschooling them, and it was really hard, I must say, especially finding the balance of homeschooling them and also working remotely. And you know, on Instagram, it always looks nice. Oh, we're traveling these and that places, but they don't see the pain also behind, you know. Sometimes we would spend 4 days in a row at home, studying, learning. But I wanted to continue with the education, because I knew this is just temporarily. until we arrive in Kenya, and now they are here enrolled in a school, in a proper school. And it's nice. They're also happy about that now.
Yeah.
Because they are meeting other children.
What's your view? What are your views in when it comes to the kind of education we've exposed our children to, and what are some of the things that you would want people to really pay keen attention?
First thing, let's not talk about the curriculum. I love the way Kenyan teachers, right? Because my children are at a school where the majority are Kenyans.
Yes.
They are so lovely with the kids. There is this relationship that we never had in the West, you know, this loving, caring relationship that the teachers have to the students. There's this respect, you know. I love that. When it comes to curriculum, I one time made an YouTube episode where I shared my frustration over the fact that the Cambridge curriculum, right, glorifies Queen Victoria. And rightly, I received a lot of backlash from Kenyans. I got their point. They say, what do you expect? You're sending your children to into a school where the Cambridge curriculum is being taught. Of course, they will glorify their own people, right? I get that, absolutely. But I don't know how they handle it in each school.
Yes.
I just saw this task that my son came home with. Name 3 good things about Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth, Queen, I don't know, there were 3 queens. And I talked about that, you know. I told him, you remember, there's actually nothing good about these people. There's actually nothing good about these people. They were colonizers. I reminded him again on the land theft, the destruction, you know, their father comes from Nigeria, Benin.
Yes.
And the Benin kingdom was destroyed by the British, by Queen Victoria. So I told him, they stole all the things from your grandfather's place, you know, because they must know.
Yes.
They must know. Because there are so many places where these people are being glorified, right? We visited Victoria Falls, Victoria and Albert waterfront in South Africa. We have the Lake Victoria here, right? Don't ever think there's anything positive about this. These people, especially the reign of Queen Victoria, right? I think that is something that is very underestimated, what that did to Africa. Because that's when the most wars happened, the entire colonization, where most of our heritage was taken, stolen, looted, where people were enslaved, right? So I say, maybe she was good for Europe, but for us Africans, there's nothing good about these people, right? So it's okay. Just because I give you my view, I remind you on what we learned. That is important because they will hear so many positive things about them outside of home. But when they hear these positive things, they remember, what about that part? And so I wish that teachers in Kenya, because I know they have to stick to the curriculum, right? But teach it in a way that makes them critically reflect, maybe also show the other side and not just repeat what was happening from their point of view.
Yeah. Don't you get people to tell you, and you just let it go. This happened, we were colonized, it's time to move on. People get colonized all the time, we sympathize and we move on. Don't you get people to tell you enough is enough? Stop
all
talking.
The time.
You get that?
All the time. All the time. But I say that people say it's the past, right? But colonization is not the past, it's the present. How? If we see, for instance, statues, right, of colonizers that are still being glorified on the African continent, being erected here and there, that is an idea, a story that is being put in a positive sense and that is being, perpetrated in the present because it's here, it's here with us. So, and as long as the narratives, right, that surround these people and the ideas still exist, colonization is not the past. If we look at land theft, if we look at how much of the land was actually given back to the people.
Yeah.
When I was in Namibia, I spent a weekend on a farm. A German family owned that farm, and there was almost a 40,000 hectare big farm. Can you imagine? While the people live in townships, how can you say colonialism is the past? It's the present. And everything, when you just look around and look more closely, you will see how colonization still affects the people today. And not just in the things that we see in the names of landscapes and places, but also in the way they are trying to meddle into our affairs, how they are destabilizing our countries, what they are doing here in Kenya. It has never ended, to be honest. The colonizers just came back as investors now, you know, as consultant with loans and their, how do you call them, this programs of the IMF.
The World Banks.
Yes, exactly. So the colonization is not the past. I hope for the day I can stop talking about it. I really long for the day. But as long as the things are as they are right now, there's being silent is not an option, you know. We're not going to accept what is happening. And we should also speak about it for the future generations, you know.
Good. Don't you fear the cancel culture? And I'm saying this because one of your videos that was globally watched, you were saying there are people who followed you for your travel content. They want to see the good things. They don't want you talking about politics. They don't want you criticizing this and that. Don't you fear that cancel culture? And do you think we can exist without paying attention to what is happening in the political circle?
I don't fear the cancel culture because I always spoke about topics that are very controversial, also in the Ethiopian context. And I received a lot of backlash, right? But everybody is free to follow who he wants to follow, right? I don't depend on Instagram. I'm not there to be liked, you know. I don't chase views. I just want to share and express my opinions. And I believe that it will always reach the right people, even if it only reaches one person. And that changes maybe the way that person sees things. Then I have already achieved something, right? And I believe there's so many travel content creators out there who do the same thing and show, oh, look at how beautiful Lamu is. Look at how beautiful Naivasha is and things like that. I was always fascinated about the things that people don't seem to talk about, know about.
Or question.
Or question. And especially also I like to talk about things where we as Africans also look in the mirror, right? Because I think we're doing also ourselves and the continent a disservice by only pointing fingers on the colonizer, you know? The colonization of our countries was only also possible because of the divisions we already had prior to the arrival.
I love that.
They were building on the divisions that already existed, sometimes maybe exaggerated them, sometimes also caused new conflicts, right? But let's not pretend that the African continent was Disneyland before the colonizers arrived. We're talking about colorism, right? Things like that. Empires, we had empires, right? We had ethnic conflicts, ethnic chauvinism, supremacy of one group over the other.
Patriarchy.
You know? And these are the topics I think, I don't fear people who want to unfollow me, really. Because I think what we need to do is work on ourselves, reflect. And that's the hard work, the inner work. That's the hardest work.
I love that. Let's look at ourselves as well. What do we have to do better as Africans? Well, you know, people always say Africans have to unite. We must unite. And I agree. But I think that is it's a wrong approach. I mean, doesn't it make more sense to look at first what is actually disuniting us? Because the slogan, Africans unite, right, is empty if we don't work on the things that disunite us. And if we look at what is disuniting us beyond the meddling of Western powers, right, then
we will see that every single one of us, I believe almost every single ethnic group, culture, society has done something in the past that they are not so proud of. So I think the most powerful thing that we can do is put away the pride. And I started with us Ethiopians, right? The pride. Ethiopians are very proud people. But if you put away the pride, there is a group that has suffered because of your group. Are you willing to acknowledge that? Because that's the precondition for that group to say, okay, we want to unite with you. I wouldn't want to unite with people who don't acknowledge my suffering, who don't acknowledge how my society is being disadvantaged, discriminated in this society because we are dark-skinned. Let's say, for instance, we have dark-skinned societies in Ethiopia, right? And people don't want to acknowledge that we had slavery in Ethiopia as well, independent from Europe, right? That we had an empire that discriminated people, that saw one group superior over the other. Every nation has that. But I feel the problem is that this omnipresence of the white, evil colonizer kind of obscures, you know, the violences that we have, the inter-ethnic conflicts that we have, that people feel like we should not speak about that because we are playing into the hands of the oppressor.
Yes.
And I think it's actually the other way around. If we don't speak about this, because this will not let these things fade away, people will not forget, it's in the collective memory of the people, right? And every single moment, a populist politician can come up who knows how to instrumentalize emotions and, you know, opens old wounds, and then we have the conflicts again. It's because we haven't done the work, you know? So we're playing into the hands of the oppressors by not talking about these things, I believe.
That's the most powerful thing I've heard this year.
Really?
Really. We have to introspect. We have to look at ourselves. We have to do the hard work, because that's the hard work. Because when you're talking about this war in Ethiopia, it wasn't done by the Italians. It wasn't being done by the Britons. It was actually being done by your own people. So us being able to look at each other in the face and say, you did me wrong, and this cannot happen again. I think that's the hard work we don't want to put in. That's the hard work, Weyni. I don't even think many Africans would want to go there.
I mean, it's, you know, actually it's very difficult for humans in general. Like how difficult it is, imagine it's very tough to tell somebody I was wrong and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's already where it starts, you know. It's so difficult. Instead, people will say, well, but I wasn't part of it. I cannot be blamed for what my ancestors did, right? And, you know, this also helped me to, in a sense, have more empathy for white people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so difficult to acknowledge these things, but you must if we want to build a future where people can coexist in peace, especially for Africans. If we really want to unite, right? Our nations, they were carved out of colonial projects. People were put into nations that had different memories of the past, different beliefs, right? How can you build a national identity where people feel a sense of belonging and togetherness, loyalty, solidarity, when you impose the beliefs of and culture and memory of one people over the others, and at the same time erasing the painful memories of the others? It's not working. And I think that is our biggest challenge in
Africa.
the day today, right, in Africa, that we're still fighting with the legacy. Also, in a sense, colonialism has the legacy there because of this newly created states that we inherited, right?
Powerful. What does the future of Africa in Weyni's eyes, how does that look like for you? What's the kind of Africa you would want your children to grow up in? Collectively, that's Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, collectively.
Wow, that's a tough question. I would like to see a stronger focus on education, but the right education, that we learn from our ancestors, indigenous knowledge, that indigenous knowledge is being elevated, you know, the importance of community, the importance of Ubuntu, togetherness. But at the same time also, I'm very impressed at what China is doing. When I look at China, how they are, you know, they are very traditional in a sense, very rooted to their own ancient knowledge systems, you know, their languages, their culture, but at the same time they're embracing modern technology. They are teaching AI children from the first grade. So I hope that in the future of Africa, children, they learn their languages, because I noticed that also here in Kenya, the same problem in Ethiopia, we are losing our languages and embrace English more. And when we lose our language, we not just lose language, we lose knowledge systems.
And our identity.
And identity, right? That we embrace identity. I like what Traoré is doing, that he has abandoned French, you know, that they are going more back into their own culture, embracing their own culture, while at the same time also bringing technology. And yeah, I hope that really my big hope is that people put away their pride, and that we teach our people who are the future, the youth, that it's okay to, you know, embrace also there's one thing that I learned from the Germans, by the way, that I'm very proud of. The Germans have really embraced the dark chapter of their past. When you see how they deal with Nazism and the Second World War, right? They're humbled by that. They pay for it, right? And okay, people can also argue about that when you see how they are involved in supporting, you know, violence and other countries, wrong guilt. But in the school curriculum of Germany, every student is being taught that the Second World War, what Hitler did, was the most evil thing, and that should never happen again. There is a national consensus about that this chapter of the past was bad, and that we're not guilty because we have not been there, right? We're not guilty in a legal sense, but we carry historical responsibility. And I think that is the important difference that we need to make also, that we can learn from. We have to separate. We are not guilty for what our ancestors did, for killing that tribe, discriminating that tribe, but we carry a historical responsibility.
I think Rwanda is doing it too. We were there, I think, a few months back. We visited so many places, and children, actually students, they come every other time. They go through the history, they see what their ancestors did to each other. And by the time you leave that whole place, you don't want to ever do that to anyone else again. I feel like we have to embrace our dark past. We have to be okay looking at it in the face and saying, yeah, I might not have contributed, but someone in my bloodline did. And I feel like for us to be able to exist or coexist peacefully, it's okay to acknowledge, I hurt you and you hurt me. Your people hurt me. My people hurt you. So how can we be able to move forward? I don't think we can move forward by burying the past. And I feel like that's what everyone wants us to do. They want us to bury the past and snatch and just come out of it and move on. I don't think that can happen.
No, it cannot happen. And for the future to be also bright for Africa, you asked me how I envision the future. One thing that I really hope to see in my lifetime is land given back to the people, one by one. Namibia, South Africa, Kenya, Botswana, Zambia, Senegal, the land. You know, because without land, we are dependent.
How do you think that will play out? I know I'm to have a conversation on the same, but I can't help but just go through the many comments where people are saying, yeah, leave this land to the black people and see nothing will happen. They even become more poor. We don't know how to take care of our own lands. There's so many comments of that nature that even though we are so angry about the farmlands in South Africa being possessed by so many white people. It's okay. That's their work. That's their sweat. As we don't love the hard work, we don't like to toil. We cannot even, and they keep pointing at Zimbabwe. Look, they were left with the farms. What happens? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I believe that Africans, especially the indigenous knowledge that we have on land, is like none to no other, compared with no other nation. Because imagine when they started plantation slavery in America and South America, they were on purpose taking a lot of women also, because they knew they are very, like, they're specialists on agriculture. It's because of our knowledge on agriculture that they enslaved also our people to work on the fields. And Zimbabwe is being taken as, you know, I think what happened in Zimbabwe was to show other nations, because the economy of Zimbabwe was sabotaged. They could have managed commercial farming. We're talking about commercial farming. If they were given the means, you know, if they were able to import the fertilizer, the machines that are needed for commercial farming, right? But because of the sanctions that were imposed on that country, that was not possible. So that was by design. In fact, there are studies that show that the farmers in Zimbabwe were actually doing quite well after they took over the land. But that was part of their agenda to set an example for other countries like Namibia, like South Africa, like Kenya. If you take back the land, we will do to you what we did to Zimbabwe. So it's not that Africans are incapable. It's that they, over and over and time again and again, they do everything they can to sabotage the progress of the people. So we know how to farm.
Please.
Our ancestors farmed.
We do know how to farm. Let that be clear. We know how to farm. Do you feel home now?
Yes. I feel so home. I love Kenya. I love Nairobi. I am so happy to see my children connecting with Kenyans, you know, and they also feel home here. It's, I don't know, it's a blessing to be here. I cannot imagine to be anywhere else. It's a blessing, really.
What would you say has been one of the greatest challenges, and how have you navigated that?
Here in Kenya?
Yes.
I wouldn't say I have, maybe it's because I had so many challenges in my life. I wouldn't, nothing that happens to me I would see as a big challenge. The scams, they happen everywhere. I don't see it as a challenge. It's not something that keeps me awake at night. Maybe my only challenge is that I miss my mom, that I'm being away from the people I love. But that's why I always try to bring them here. I brought my mom here.
I saw that.
Oh my God, she fell in love with this. She fell in love with this country. She just told me, I wish I was 20 again. I would take over the whole country. I would become so rich and successful, she said. She sees so many opportunities here, you know? And she said, the country and the people, they are so beautiful and kind, you know.
I love that. But I know there are also some people who might be watching this, maybe before I let you go, and they'll be like, okay, this is what you Africans do. You know, you come to Europe, you benefit from our systems and structures, our education, our money, etc., etc. And then now you go back to the motherland and you are here saying how Europe was not this and that, yada yada. What do you say to that?
Have they not benefited from us? I mean, Germany, look at images of Germany after the Second World War. Who built Germany?
We did.
Yes. They took people from abroad because they were on their knees. We built Germany. I paid taxes like crazy. I contributed. You know, I was teaching there also in schools. So I think we were a blessing to Germany, actually. You know, if they don't want to have us, it's fine.
Do you face such criticism? Has anyone ever commented along those lines? Are those some of the things?
Of course. Telling me you're bashing Germany now after you have benefited from this country and you went to university here. But let me tell you something, Lynn. People who comment like this, right? are mostly like very miserable people. There's a lot of jealousy, you know. When they see people doing well, especially when they comment in Germany, I noticed, oh, you went to university and now, like, why didn't you go to university? You know, people are very negative, online especially, very negative. And yeah, I've heard that many times, but I don't care. So what? Even if I have benefited, so what? So does that mean I should not make use of the privileges that God gave me, you know, so that people cannot say, oh, you benefited? We have to work with the privileges and the gifts that God gave us.
Absolutely. I love that. And we won't shrink.
No.
No.
For who?
For what? One term.
Yes.
Yeah, but I want to let you go. But before I do, is there anything you wanted to add on today's conversation that you feel like, Lynn, I don't want to leave here before touching on it? Feel free, before I can give you a moment maybe to wind up this conversation.
No, I think it was a beautiful conversation. It was
so,
I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I want to go extreme, but I'm like, nah, let me save this for later. Let me save this for another conversation. But I've really loved having you here. It's been beautiful. What legacy are you looking to leaving behind?
That's a good question. What legacy?
Yes.
You know, I think this is not about me. I don't care if people remember me or not, you know. I just, when I see how children growing up here on the continent, the way they learn at school, sometimes they have no chairs, you know. I just want children to have opportunities, you know, to become who they want to be. So when you mean by legacy, what I would love to do is build schools, you know, invest in equipment. I think one thing that I learned from my mom is the beauty of giving. I'm a giver. I love to give to people, help them.
Yeah.
And that's also what I'm trying to do now, because many people reached out to me. They said, wow, this is so inspiring what you're doing. I'm fighting with that whenever I mention in my circle that I dream of moving to Africa, start something there, just live free with my people. Then I receive so much backlash, but I want to just follow my heart. And they ask me for advice, right? Especially most questions that I get is, how were you able to do this financially?
Yeah.
And so what I'm working at right now is teaching others how to do the same. How to, as I told you in the beginning, I have an Airbnb business where I have properties on different African countries, and that gives me the freedom to travel, to work whenever I want. And I also want to teach others the same, especially women, because women are the ones that take care of children, right? We're very limited. And one thing that I always knew was, because I barely saw my mom growing up, like we were also raised in the streets, you know. I brought my younger sister to school, to kindergarten. I was a first grader. Dropped her at kindergarten, and then I walked to school myself. And I wanted to spend more time with my children. That was also what drove me towards creating a business that helps me to spend more time with my children. You know? So because if we don't spend time with our children, raise them, educate them, others will.
Good. Others. Mom was up and down making ends meet for you guys.
Yes.
That must have been hard, not experiencing her at that particular age. Yeah.
And so the legacy that maybe to frame it that way, I want to inspire people to come to the African continent, to invest, to build, to bring their knowledge, bring their resources, and also learn, you know. Don't come in the same way that the investors, the colonizers came to exploit for your own gains, but see the bigger picture. Every one of us learned something in the West. We bring the best from both worlds. And so we have the connection, we have the access, we have the roots, right? We need to claim our space here, because if we don't do it, somebody else will. Everybody's trying to get in here. You see Russia, China, all these powers are coming to invest here.
Yeah.
And India and what have you. What are our people doing? Nobody is more scared of Africa than Africans. If you talk to African Americans, they're scared to go to Africa and visit even, you know? So I want to share my journey to show them, if I can do it, you can do it too.
I love that. And maybe part of the challenges, because I had Keisha here from Traverse Culture, and we were just touching on some of the challenges. Maybe what are some of the challenges you've experienced in your investing journey? Corruption, this and that. Have you gone through that?
Yes, bribery, you know, that money talks. If you want something to go fast, if you don't want to wait 1 year for your residency, yes. And yeah, I think it's part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's because of the systems that are in place. People are not being fared appropriately for the work they are doing. So they are making their own ways. And
greed.
Yes, greed also is part of it. But to be honest, it's actually not really much different in Europe, you know? It just, the corruption is just framed in a different way and in disguise. They also steal our money.
Yeah.
You know, taxing you here for this and that. And you ask yourself, where's all the money going to?
Yeah.
Right?
Visa charges here and there, crazy charges left, right and center. But every country has its own challenges. But I'm happy that Kenya has been a beautiful host for you.
Yes.
It's now home. So, you know, you come, you participate, you say one term, you know, you say one, you know, you participate, you become an active participant of the growth. And I love your idea of showcasing this also to people in diaspora. I don't want African Americans to be scared of the motherland, but if we have people like you showing them the way and maybe sharing your experience, then it becomes very much easier.
Yes, absolutely.
Because knowledge is power.
Yes.
And maybe that's what majority of them are lacking, the knowledge and the exposure, and just in someone who is there and how they are navigating. So I can't wait to have a community of so many of them here, courtesy of you, your knowledge exchange. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You look absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
I love your hair. I hope you feel proud of your curls now.
Now, yes.
I hope you don't have to stress. You know, I hope when you now straighten, it's because you want to.
Yes, exactly.
Not because you should do it. And I hope you understand how big and impactful the role you are playing is. You know, you've encouraged me. I know there are people who are so lost in this whole Pan-Africanism journey, and they are like, okay, so what next, guys? We are having this conversation, what next? But when, you know, we bump into people like you, we get to understand what's next. Financial freedom, ownership of our countries. Please return our lands. This is a conversation that we should never stop having.
Never.
We should not stop talking about the land injustices in this continent. Please, we should not, and we will not move on. We will not move on until what is ours is given back to us, you know.
Exactly.
So now when we meet a community of people like you, it gives me great joy. So shukran sana.
Asante sana. Thanks for having me.
Yes. What's your parting shot maybe to our audience, and how can they connect with you?
Fam, please, if you can, come and visit Kenya, visit the African continent and see for yourself. Don't believe what people try to tell you when they try to impose their insecurities and their own fears upon you, because we know where this is coming from, right? It's coming from people who have never built anything, who have never risked anything. So risking something in life is rewarding, and you just have to ask yourself, if you're unhappy with your life right now and you feel stuck, ask you which pain is bigger. The pain of being in the situation you are in right now for the rest of your life, or the pain of stepping out of your comfort zone, invest in yourself, learning and facing your fears and go out there. And then you know which pain you have to take, and you will not regret it. And I really wish this journey for you. If you want to learn more how I did it, please follow me on Instagram and on YouTube. My channel name is Plan Back to Africa. Yes. I'm happy to have you on board, and I wish you best of luck, that you find your way back home where you are loved, where you are appreciated, where you are valued and seen.
I love it. Which pain is greater?
Yes.
Choose.
Choose.
You get to choose.
Yes.
And the choice is yours.
The choice is yours.
All right. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Coming to our beautiful studio.
Yes,
and gracing
really,
us. Yeah.
I feel honored, really.
You do?
Yes.
I appreciate. Me too. Me too. I feel honored sitting here with a sister discussing important matters about our continent. Yeah. So guys, thank you also for tuning in. I am really interested in your thoughts on today's conversation on the comment section. Please do share. I want to know what you've learned, what you are learning, and what you are relearning. And I hope we can truly have a beautiful, impactful year together. I love the guests that we get to have on this set. Connect with her. Her handles are on the screen right now. Guys, please follow her, especially on Instagram. It's an exciting place to be in. And you get to also, you know, just travel the world through her eyes. And what else? Maybe, you know, just let me know also what other conversation we can have here on the platform. Thank you to our super producer, Edwin, for putting this together. We appreciate him, the entire team, Muga, and the rest of the people at LNN. We do not take you guys for granted. If you want to share your story with me, info@lnn.digital. That's where you can be able to send a brief, and who knows, we could be sitting with you here on our next episode of LNN. My name is Lynn. How about I see you guys tomorrow 10 a.m. or 7 p.m. Namkumbuke one time. Sawa. Bye-bye.
If you want to learn more about my journey and understand how you can build yourself also I'm so confused.
It's okay. Good. Let's do it.